The $500 account my parents never mentioned. I was 55 years old when my boss told me I was too old to work for him anymore. 55. Like that's ancient. Like I hadn't given him 20 years of 60-hour weeks, missed birthdays, skipped vacations. 20 years of building his restaurant empire while my own life stayed small and manageable and safe. "You're too old," he said. Just like that. Tuesday morning, March 3rd. I'll never forget it. I didn't cry in his office. I waited until I got in my car in the parking lot, hands shaking so badly I could barely get the key in the ignition. 55 years old, and I had nothing. No retirement. No savings worth mentioning. Just a checking account that would last maybe 3 months if I was careful. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about my parents. They'd passed away years ago. Mom in 2019, Dad in 2021, and I'd handled everything. The funeral arrangements, the estate paperwork, the house sale, all of it. They hadn't left much. The house sold for enough to cover their remaining bills and split what was left between me and my brother Daniel. We each got about $8,000. Not life-changing money, but I was grateful anyway. But lying there in the dark, unemployed and terrified, I remembered something. When I was young, maybe 7 or 8, I'd asked Mom why we never went on vacations like other families. She'd smiled and said something I didn't understand then. "We're investing in your future, sweetheart. You'll understand when you're older." I never did understand. And eventually, I stopped asking. Now, at 3 in the morning, broke and jobless, those words came back to me. Investing in your future. I got out of bed and went to the closet where I'd stored the last box of my parents' papers. Things I hadn't looked at since the estate was settled. Old photos, tax returns, random documents I kept meaning to sort through, but never did. I pulled out the box and started going through it. That's when I found the envelope. It was yellowed with age, tucked between some old tax documents from 1985. My name was written on it in my father's handwriting. Just my first name, nothing else. Inside was a single sheet of paper, a bank statement, dated December 1985. The account holder name was mine. The balance was $500. I stared at it, confused. I'd never had a bank account in 1985. I was 15 years old, and $500 back then, that was real money. Where had it come from? But that's not what made my knees buckle. At the bottom of the statement, in small print, was a note. Automatic stock purchase plan activated. Monthly contributions, $50. My hands started trembling. Automatic stock purchase plan. From 40 years ago, I grabbed my laptop and searched for the bank name. It had been acquired by a larger institution in the 90s. I found their customer service number and wrote it down, even though it was 4 in the morning and no one would answer. I didn't sleep the rest of that night. At 8:59 the next morning, I was sitting at my kitchen table with my phone in my hand, that old statement spread out in front of me. At exactly 9 o'clock, I dialed. "Thank you for calling. How can I help you today?" The woman's voice was pleasant, professional. She had no idea what she was about to tell me. "Hi, I have a really old account number," I said. My voice sounded strange to my own ears. "From 1985. I just found the paperwork, and I'm trying to figure out if the account still exists." "Of course, I can help you with that. May I have the account number?" I read it off the statement, slowly, checking each digit twice. There was a pause. Clicking sounds. More clicking. Then silence. "Mom," I said, "are you still there?" "Yes, I'm here." Her voice had changed. It sounded careful. "Can you verify your name and date of birth for me?" I did. More clicking. Longer silence this time. "Ma'am, I'm going to need to transfer you to one of our senior account managers. Can you hold for just a moment?" My heart was pounding. Is something wrong? No, nothing's wrong. It's just, this account requires a specialist. Please hold. The hold music was classical. Mozart, maybe. It felt like it played for hours, but it was probably only 3 minutes. "Hello, this is Martin Reeves. Am I speaking with?" He said my full name. "Yes, that's me. And you're inquiring about an account established in your name in 1985? "Yes. I just found the paperwork. My parents, they're both deceased now. I'm trying to understand what this is." Another pause. I could hear him breathing. Ma'am, this account has been active for 40 years. The automatic stock purchase plan has been running continuously since 1985. The room seemed to tilt. I don't understand, I whispered. Your parents set up an account in your name and enrolled it in our automatic investment program. $50 per month was invested into a diversified stock portfolio. The account has been untouched since inception. $50 a month. For 40 years. I tried to do the math in my head, but couldn't focus. How much? I couldn't finish the sentence. Including dividends, reinvestment, and compound growth over 4 decades. He paused. I could hear papers rustling. The current value of the account is approximately $1.7 million. The phone slipped out of my hand. I heard his voice, distant and tinny, still talking. I picked the phone back up, my whole body shaking. I'm sorry, can you repeat that? $1.7 million, ma'am. Give or take, depending on today's market close. I couldn't breathe. $1.7 million. My parents, who'd worked blue-collar jobs their entire lives, who'd driven the same car for 15 years, who'd never taken a vacation I could remember, had been putting away $50 a month for me since I was 15 years old. And they'd never told me. What? My voice broke. Why wouldn't they tell me? Martin Reeves was quiet for a moment. When he spoke again, his voice was gentler. I don't know your parents' reasoning, ma'am, but I've seen accounts like this before. Usually, they're meant as a surprise. A safety net. Something for their child to discover when they need it most. When they need it most. I looked around my small apartment. At the eviction notice I'd received yesterday. At the stack of bills on the counter. At the life I'd thought was falling apart. There's one more thing, Martin said. My stomach dropped. Of course there was more. There was always more. Your brother's name. It's also on the account. As a co-beneficiary. The world went cold. If you've ever discovered that your entire life was built on something you didn't know existed, you understand what I felt in that moment. Everything I thought I knew about my parents, about my childhood, about why we struggled. It was all wrong. But there was something else. Something Martin's words had triggered in my mind. Daniel's name was on the account too, which meant Daniel had known. And he'd never said a word. I sat at that kitchen table for 2 hours after the call ended, staring at nothing. $1.7 million. The number kept repeating in my head like a broken record. Except it wasn't the money that had me paralyzed. It was the other thing Martin Reeves had said. Your brother's name. Co-beneficiary. Daniel knew. I grabbed my phone and pulled up his contact. My finger hovered over the call button. We talked maybe once a month these days. Superficial conversations about weather and work and nothing that mattered. We drifted apart after Dad died, the way siblings sometimes do when the glue that held them together is gone. But this wasn't drift. This was something else. I pressed call. It rang 4 times. Then 5. I was about to hang up when he answered. Hey. His voice was casual. Easy. Like he didn't have a secret that could change my life. What's up? I found something, I said. My voice sounded hollow. In Mom and Dad's papers. Silence on the other end. Not the comfortable kind. The kind that's full of held breath and racing thoughts. What did you find? He asked slowly. A bank statement. From 1985. An account in my name. I paused, waiting for him to say something. He didn't. With your name on it too. As co-beneficiary. The silence stretched so long I thought the call had dropped. Daniel? I'm here. His voice had changed. Flatter. Guarded. You called the bank. This morning. They told me the account is worth $1.7 million. I heard him exhale. Did you know? All this time, did you know? Another pause. Shorter this time. Yeah, he said quietly. I knew. The confirmation hit me like a physical blow, even though I'd expected it. How long? Since Dad died. I was helping you sort through his papers, remember? I found the statement before you did. I put it back. I closed my eyes. I remember that week. Daniel had been helpful, patient, taking the lead on so much of the paperwork while I dealt with the funeral arrangements. I've been grateful for him then. Why didn't you tell me? Because Dad asked me not to. His words came faster now, defensive. There was a letter with the statement. Addressed to me. He said the account was meant for you, but that you weren't supposed to know about it unless you really needed it. He made me promise. My head was spinning. What do you mean unless I really needed it? He said. Daniel hesitated. He said you were the responsible one. The one who always played it safe, always had a backup plan. He was worried you'd find out about the money and just sit on it. Not take risks. Not live. I felt something hot and sharp twist in my chest. So he decided I shouldn't know about my own money? It's more complicated than that. Then explain it to me. I heard him moving around on his end. A door closing. When he spoke again, his voice was lower, like he didn't want someone to hear. Dad was dying when he wrote that letter. The cancer was already in his brain. He knew he didn't have much time. Daniel stopped. I could hear him swallow. He said that Mom had wanted to tell you years ago, when you graduated high school, then when you got your first job, then when you turned 30. But every time, Dad convinced her to wait. Why? Because you were doing okay. You had a job, an apartment. You were stable. And Dad, he had this theory that the money would ruin that. That you'd quit working, maybe waste it, maybe lose yourself in it. He wanted you to build a life first. Become who you were going to be without the safety net. I thought about my life. 20 years of the same restaurant job. The same apartment for a decade. The same careful, small existence. I got fired yesterday, I said. Did you know that? What? No? I'm 55 years old, and I just lost my job because I'm too old. I have 3 months of savings. I got an eviction notice yesterday because my landlord is selling the building. My voice cracked. This was when I needed it, Daniel. This was exactly when I needed it. I know. I'm sorry. I was going to. Were you? I cut him off. Because Dad's been dead for 3 years. You could have told me any time. But you didn't. The silence that followed was different. Heavier. There's more, Daniel finally said. Of course there was. What more could there possibly be? The account. It's structured weird. Mom and Dad set it up so that it couldn't be accessed until you were 55 or unless both co-beneficiaries agreed to release it early. I'm the other co-beneficiary, which means you've had control this whole time. The realization made me feel sick. You could have given me access whenever you wanted. I was trying to honor Dad's wishes. Dad's wishes? Dad's dead, Daniel. And I'm the one who's been struggling while you sat on this information. You don't understand. His voice had an edge now. I've been struggling too. My business went under 2 years ago. I'm living in Sarah's parents' basement. I've thought about that account every single day, wondering if I should tell you, wondering if maybe Dad was wrong, wondering if... He stopped abruptly. The unfinished sentence hung between us like smoke. Wondering if what? I asked, even though I already knew. Daniel didn't answer. Wondering if you could take some of it? I finished for him. Is that what you were going to say? It has my name on it too, he said quietly. And there it was. The real reason he'd stayed quiet. My little brother, the one who'd cried at Dad's funeral, who'd held my hand during Mom's final days in the hospital, who I'd split that $8,000 with without a second thought, had been sitting on a secret worth nearly $2 million. And part of him had been hoping to claim it for himself. I need to go, I said. Wait, let me explain. I hung up. My hands were shaking again. Not from fear this time. From rage. I looked at the bank statement on my table, and my father's handwriting on the envelope. At the 40 years of planning and sacrifice and secrets, they'd given me this gift, but they'd wrapped it in conditions and tests and hidden clauses. Like I was a child who couldn't be trusted with her own future. And Daniel had become part of the game without even realizing it. I picked up my phone again and called Martin Reeves back. He answered on the second ring. Ms. Patterson, I was expecting to hear from you again. I need to know exactly how this account is structured, I said. My brother told me it requires both co-beneficiaries to agree to release the funds. Is that true? Papers rustled on his end. That's partially correct. The account has a dual authorization requirement for early access, meaning before you turn 55. But as of your 55th birthday last month, that restriction expired. You now have full access to the account without requiring your brother's approval. The room tilted again. I turned 55 3 weeks ago. I whispered, "Yes, ma'am," which means as of 3 weeks ago, This account became solely yours to manage. Your brother's co-beneficiary status is now purely ceremonial. He would inherit if something happened to you, but he has no control over the funds. Does he know that? Martin paused. I'm not sure what your brother does or doesn't know, ma'am, but the account documents were very clear. Everything transfers to your sole control at age 55. I thought about Daniel's voice on the phone, the desperation underneath his excuses, the way he'd said, "It has my name on it too." He didn't know. He thought he still had leverage, thought he still had a chance to claim part of this. "There's something else," Martin said, pulling me back. "When I pulled up your file earlier, I noticed there was a sealed letter attached to the account. Instructions from your parents to be released only to you, and only after you made contact about the account." My throat tightened. "A letter? Yes. Would you like me to send it to you? Or would you prefer to come in to retrieve it in person?" I looked around my small apartment, at my life that had seemed so small just yesterday, at the future that had suddenly cracked wide open. "I'll come in," I said. "Today. What time can I be there?" "I'm available at 2 o'clock. "I'll be there." After I hung up, I sat very still. My parents had left me a letter. Instructions. Maybe explanations. Maybe apologies. And Daniel thought he still had a say in this. Thought he still had time to convince me, manipulate me, or claim what he believed was partially his. But he was wrong. The money had been mine all along. They just made me wait until I was old enough to appreciate it, or desperate enough to need it. I looked at the eviction notice on my counter, at the stack of rejection emails from job applications I'd sent out yesterday in a panic, at the life I'd thought was ending. My phone buzzed. A text from Daniel. "Please call me back. I can explain everything. Dad's letter said things you need to know." I stared at the message. Dad's letter. Daniel had read my father's letter to him, but I hadn't read mine yet. What if there was something in that letter that changed everything? What if my parents' final words to me explained why they'd done this, or revealed something even worse? I grabbed my keys and headed for the door. The bank was 40 minutes away. I'd be there early. I didn't care, because after 40 years of secrets, I was finally going to learn the truth. And whatever my parents had written in that letter, whatever they'd been too afraid to tell me while they were alive, I was going to have to face it alone. I made it to the bank in 32 minutes. The building was one of those modern glass structures that reflected the sky. I sat in the parking lot for 5 minutes, gripping the steering wheel, trying to steady my breathing. Inside that building was a letter my parents had written. Instructions they'd left behind. Words they'd been too afraid or too strategic to say to my face. I got out of the car and walked in. Martin Reeves met me in the lobby. He was older than he'd sounded on the phone, maybe mid-60s, with kind eyes and a firm handshake. "Ms. Patterson, thank you for coming in." He gestured toward a private office. "Please, let's talk somewhere more comfortable." The office was small but elegant. Wood paneling, leather chairs, a window overlooking downtown. Martin sat across from me and opened a folder. "Before we discuss the letter, I want to make sure you understand the account structure completely." He slid a document across the desk. "As I mentioned, you now have sole control. Your brother's name remains on the account only as a beneficiary in case of your death. He cannot access, withdraw, or make any decisions regarding these funds." I nodded, scanning the document. It was all there in legal language. Sole authority granted at age 55. Did my brother know this? I asked. Martin's expression didn't change. "I cannot speak to what your brother may or may not know, but these documents were available to him when your father passed. Whether he read them thoroughly." He left the sentence unfinished. So Daniel either didn't know or had been pretending not to know. Either way, he'd been lying to me. "The letter," I said. "Can I see it?" Martin reached into the folder and pulled out a cream-colored envelope. My mother's handwriting on the front. Just my name. My hand shook as I took it. "Take your time," Martin said quietly. "I'll step out and give you privacy." "No." I looked up at him. "Please stay. I think I need a witness for this." He nodded and settled back in his chair. I opened the envelope carefully. Inside were 2 pages, handwritten. My mother's writing on the first page. My father's on the second. I started reading. My dearest girl, if you're reading this, it means you've found the account. And it means you've reached 55, or something has happened that made you need this safety net. Either way, you found it at the right time. I want you to know that every month for 40 years, your father and I put away $50 for you. Some months it meant we didn't go to the movies. Some months it meant we ate simpler meals. We never took the vacations we dreamed about. We drove old cars. We wore old clothes. We did this because we loved you. But there's something else you need to know. Something we could never tell you while we were alive. My heart started pounding. When you were 15, you had a boyfriend named Marcus. You loved him with that fierce, complete way teenagers love. You told us you were going to marry him someday. We knew you weren't. We knew because we'd seen the way he looked at other girls. The way he talked about his future without you in it. But you were 15 and in love, and you wouldn't have believed us. I stopped breathing. Marcus. I hadn't thought about Marcus in decades. That summer, Marcus's family was struggling financially. His father had been laid off. They were going to lose their house. Marcus came to you and asked if you could help them. He said his family needed $500 to make the mortgage payment. You had $500 in your savings account. Money you'd earned from babysitting and birthday gifts over the years. You told us you wanted to give it to him. I remembered. Cool, you remembered. We told you no. We said that money was for college, for your future. You cried for days. You said we didn't understand what love meant. You said we were selfish. 2 weeks later, Marcus broke up with you. He'd found another girl, one whose parents had given her money to give to him. You were heartbroken. You thought we'd ruined your life. But here's what you never knew. I could barely see the page through my tears. We took that $500 from your account. We opened this investment account in your name without telling you. We started the automatic contributions the next month. We did it because we knew that someday, when you were older and wiser, you'd need that money more than Marcus ever did. We did it because we wanted you to have a future that didn't depend on anyone else's approval or love or promises. We did it because we knew you'd eventually thank us. I'm sorry we couldn't tell you. I'm sorry we had to wait until we were gone. But I need you to understand, this money isn't just an investment. It's proof that we believed in you, that we love you enough to let you hate us for a little while. Your father wants to say something too. I'll let him finish this. The handwriting changed. My father's careful script. Sweetheart, your mother's right about everything she wrote. But there's one more thing. Daniel knows about this account. I told him when I got sick. I asked him not to tell you unless you really needed it. I knew that was unfair to him and unfair to you. But I was dying and I was scared I'd run out of time to do this right. Your brother is a good man, but he's always struggled with money. I worry he'll come to you asking for help. I worry he'll make you feel guilty about having this when he doesn't. Don't let him. This is yours. You earned it by being the daughter who called us every week, who helped us when we got old, who never asked us for anything you didn't absolutely need. You earned it by building a life that didn't depend on handouts or shortcuts. Daniel will have to build his own life too. That's not cruelty. That's love. Be strong, sweetheart. Be wise. Be free. We'll always be proud of you. Dad, I set the letter down on the desk. My whole body was shaking. Martin pushed a box of tissues across to me without saying anything. They took my money, I whispered. When I was 15, they took my money without asking. They invested your money, Martin said gently, and turned $500 into $1.7 million. But they didn't tell me. For 40 years, they let me struggle. Let me work jobs I hated. Let me live small and scared and careful. I looked up at him. Why? Why would they do that? I think, Martin said carefully, they wanted you to become who you are without the money defining you. They wanted you to earn your own life first. I thought about Marcus. How devastated I'd been when he left me. How I blamed my parents for months. 3 years later, I heard he'd been arrested for fraud, scamming elderly people out of their retirement savings. He'd gone to prison. My parents had saved me from more than I'd ever known. There's one more thing, Martin said. He pulled out another document. This is the transaction history for the account. Every deposit, every dividend, every trade. I took it, scanning the pages. $50 a month. Every single month. For 40 years. Except, I stopped at a line item from 2019. The month my mother died. There was a withdrawal. $5,000. What's this? I asked, pointing. Martin leaned over to look. His expression shifted. That's unusual. Withdrawals require both signatures before age 55 or sole authority after. This was made before your 55th birthday, which means both my parents authorized it. I finished. Or both co-beneficiaries did. Your mother had already passed by this date, Martin said quietly, which meant my father had made the withdrawal. With Daniel, where did the money go? I asked. Martin typed something into his computer. His face went pale. It was transferred to an account in your brother's name. The room went cold. $5,000. Taken from my account without my knowledge. By my father or my brother. While I was still grieving my mother. I stood up, the chair scraping loudly against the floor. I need to see my brother, I said. Ms. Patterson, perhaps you should. Now, I said, I need to see him now, because the letter had told me one truth. But the account records had revealed another. And Daniel had a lot of explaining to do. I drove to Daniel's house without calling first. He was living in his in-laws' basement. A split level in the suburbs with a chain-link fence and a dog that barked at everything. I'd been there once for Thanksgiving 2 years ago. The basement had felt like a tomb then. Low ceilings, small windows, the smell of mildew barely masked by air freshener. I parked on the street and sat there for a moment, staring at the house. $5,000. The number burned in my mind. It wasn't the amount that hurt. It was the betrayal. My father, in his final months, had authorized a withdrawal from my account. And Daniel had been right there with him, signing off on it, taking what was mine. I got out of the car and walked up the driveway. The doorbell echoed inside. Footsteps. The door opened. Daniel looked terrible. Unshaven, dark circles under his eyes, wearing sweatpants and a stained t-shirt. When he saw me, something flickered across his face. Relief, maybe, or fear. I knew you'd come, he said quietly. We need to talk. He stepped aside and I walked in. The basement stairs were immediately to the left. He led me down without a word. The space was exactly as I remembered. A queen bed pushed against one wall, a TV on a dresser, a small table with 2 chairs, boxes stacked in the corner. The ceiling was barely 6 inches above Daniel's head. Sarah's at work, he said. The kids are at school. It's just us. I turned to face him. $5,000. June 2019. You and Dad withdrew it from my account. Daniel's face went white. He opened his mouth, closed it, then sank into one of the chairs. You went to the bank, he said. It wasn't a question. Of course I went to the bank. They gave me the transaction history. They gave me everything. I pulled out the document and slammed it on the table. You want to explain this? Daniel stared at the paper like it might bite him. Dad was dying, he said finally. He had maybe 3 months left. The hospice bills were insane. Insurance wasn't covering everything. He needed help. So you took it from me? Without asking. You didn't know about the account. Daniel's voice rose. You had no idea it existed. We weren't taking something from you. We were borrowing from an account you didn't even know was yours. Borrowing. I repeated coldly. Did you pay it back? Silence. Did you? I pressed. I was going to, Daniel said. After Dad died, I was going to find a way to put it back before you ever found out. But then my business collapsed and Sarah's mom got sick and we had to move in here and He put his head in his hands. I couldn't. I stared at him. My little brother. The one who'd idolized me growing up. Who'd called me when his first daughter was born, crying with joy. Who'd helped me move into my apartment 10 years ago and assembled all my furniture without complaint. What happened to you? I asked quietly. He looked up. His eyes were red. Life happened. I made bad investments. Trusted the wrong people. Made stupid decisions. He laughed bitterly. I'm 51 years old, and I'm living in my mother-in-law's basement. I've failed at everything. So you decided to steal from me? I didn't steal. Yes, you did. I slammed my hand on the table. You took money from an account with my name on it without my knowledge or permission. That's theft, Daniel. I don't care that Dad authorized it. I don't care that you were desperate. You stole from me. Daniel stood up. You want to call the cops? Go ahead. Add that to the list of ways I've destroyed my life. I want the truth, I said. All of it. Because I've read Mom and Dad's letter. I know about the $500 from when I was 15. I know about Marcus. I know Dad asked you to keep the account secret. I stepped closer. What I don't know is what else you've been lying about. Something shifted in Daniel's expression. A door closing. There's nothing else, he said. You're lying. I'm not. You're lying the same way you lied on the phone. The same way you've been lying for 3 years. I pulled out my phone. I'm calling a lawyer. I'm getting legal advice about this account and about getting back what you stole. Wait. Daniel's voice cracked. Please wait. I paused, finger hovering over my phone. There's something else, he said. But if I tell you, you're going to hate me more than you already do. Try me. Daniel walked to one of the boxes in the corner and pulled out a folder. He brought it back to the table and set it down carefully. 2 months before Dad died, he called me over. Just me. Said he had something to discuss man to man. Daniel opened the folder. Inside were more bank statements. Different accounts. He told me about your investment account. Showed me all the paperwork. And then he told me there was another account. My blood went cold. What other account? One he'd set up for me when I was 15. Same structure. Same monthly contributions. Same everything. I couldn't breathe. Show me. Daniel slid the statements across. I saw his name. Saw the dates. Saw the monthly $50 contributions starting in 1989. Saw the balance. $73,000. I stared at the number. That doesn't make sense. If they started contributing the same amount at roughly the same time, why is yours so much lower? Daniel's face twisted with something ugly. Shame, maybe, or anger. Because I found out about mine when I was 25, he said. Dad told me about it. Said I could access it when I turned 30. I was so excited. I thought I was set for life. What happened? I got engaged. Wanted to buy Sarah a huge ring, impress her family, throw a big wedding. Dad said the account was meant for a house down payment or starting a business. Something responsible. I told him I was an adult and it was my money. Daniel's voice had gone flat. We fought. I demanded he give me access. He said no, so I threatened to sue him. Daniel, I hired a lawyer. Actual lawyer. Spent $2,000 I didn't have. And you know what the lawyer told me? I shook my head. He said the account was legally structured so that Dad had discretion over when I could access it. Not age-based like yours. Dad could release it whenever he wanted or never release it at all. It was his call. Daniel's laugh was hollow. I'd threatened to sue my own father over money he'd saved for me, and I had no legal right to it anyway. So what did you do? I apologized, begged him to forgive me, promised I'd be responsible. He paused, and he gave me access, not to the full amount, just $20,000. He said I had to prove I could handle money first. And did you? Daniel's silence was answer enough. I blew it all in 6 months. The ring, the wedding, a car I couldn't afford. Stupid choices. He looked at me. Dad never gave me access to the rest. He said I'd proven his point, that I wasn't ready. So you've had access to your account for 25 years, and you've withdrawn. What? Maybe 30,000 total? 47,000, Daniel said quietly. Over 25 years. Every time I hit rock bottom, Dad would release a little bit. Just enough to keep me afloat. Never enough to get ahead. I sat down slowly. He was teaching you a lesson. He was punishing me for being greedy, for not being like you. Responsible, patient, careful. Daniel's voice turned bitter. You got the full amount at 55, no restrictions, no conditions. I got scraps when I begged for them. That's not fair, I said. But even as I said it, I wasn't sure I believed it. No, it's not, Daniel agreed. But that's how Dad saw us. You were the golden child who deserved everything. I was the screw-up who needed to earn every penny. I thought about my parents' letter, about how they'd taken my $500 and invested it without telling me, how they made me wait 40 years to find out about it. That hadn't felt like golden child treatment. That had felt like manipulation. Why are you telling me this? I asked. Daniel looked me in the eye. Because when I took that $5,000 for Dad's hospice care, I didn't just use it for medical bills. My stomach dropped. What did you use it for? $2,000 went to hospice. The rest, he swallowed hard. The rest went to a lawyer. A real one this time. A specialist in estate law. Why? Because I wanted to know if there was any way I could claim part of your account after Dad died. If I could argue that since I was a co-beneficiary, I deserved half. He looked away. The lawyer laughed at me, said the paperwork was ironclad, that you owned everything and I owned nothing of yours. That Dad had made absolutely sure I couldn't touch your money. I stood up. The room felt too small, too dark, too suffocating. You spent $3,000 of my dollars to find out how to steal the rest of my money. I was desperate. You're always desperate, Daniel. You're always broke, always failing, always needing someone else to save you. I grabbed my bag. I'm done. I'm leaving. Please just listen. No, I'm going to that lawyer. A real lawyer. And I'm going to find out exactly what my options are. Because I'm not letting this go. I headed for the stairs. Daniel followed. The account with my money, he called after me. Dad left me instructions too. In his letter, I stopped on the stairs and turned. He said if I ever got my act together, really got it together, there might be more. That he'd left additional funds somewhere. He said I'd have to figure out where. Daniel's voice shook. I think he was talking about your account. I think he left me a way to access it if you agreed. I'll never agree, I said. I know. Daniel's face crumpled. I know I don't deserve it. I don't deserve anything. But I'm asking you anyway. Please. My kids, your nieces, they're struggling. We're struggling. Just a little bit. Just enough to. Goodbye, Daniel. I walked up the stairs and out of the house. In my car, I sat gripping the steering wheel, shaking with rage. My father had played us against each other. Set up 2 accounts, 2 different rules, 2 different tests. Made us into competitors without us even knowing it. And now Daniel was here, broken and desperate, asking for scraps from my table. I pulled out my phone and searched for estate lawyers in my area. The first one had an opening at 4 o'clock. I booked it because whatever my parents had planned, whatever game they'd set in motion, I was going to find out the rules. And I was going to win. The lawyer's office was downtown in one of those renovated historic buildings. Exposed brick, hardwood floors, too much modern art on the walls. Her name was Victoria Chun. Mid-40s, sharp suit, sharper eyes. She came highly recommended according to the internet reviews. $300 an hour. I didn't care what it cost anymore. Ms. Patterson. She shook my hand firmly and gestured to a leather chair across from her desk. You mentioned on the phone, this involves a family estate matter. It involves my parents' estate and my brother stealing from me. I pulled out the folder with all the documents. The bank statements, the transaction records, the letters. I need to know what I can do about it. Victoria took the folder and started reading. She was quiet for a long time, occasionally making notes on a legal pad. I watched her expression change as she worked through the documents. Professional neutrality giving way to something that looked like fascination. Finally, she set the papers down and looked at me. This is one of the most unusual estate structures I've seen in 20 years of practice, she said. Is that good or bad? It's complicated. She leaned back in her chair. Let me make sure I understand the situation. Your parents established 2 separate investment accounts. One for you, one for your brother. Different structures, different rules, different outcomes. Your brother accessed his account multiple times over 25 years. Your account remained untouched until you reached 55, at which point you gained sole control. Right. Except for the $5,000 my brother and father withdrew. Yes, that transaction. Victoria tapped her pen on the desk. Here's what's interesting. That withdrawal was technically legal. Your father was a co-signatory on your account until you turned 55. He had every right to authorize withdrawals. My chest tightened, so I can't do anything about it. I didn't say that. Victoria pulled out one of the bank statements. What makes this unusual is the timing and the circumstances. Your father was terminally ill when this withdrawal was made. His cognitive function may have been impaired by his cancer. If we could prove he wasn't of sound mind when he authorized this transaction, we might be able to argue it was invalid. But my brother signed off on it too. Your brother wasn't a legal co-signatory at that point. He was only listed as a beneficiary. Which means, Victoria paused, reading something more carefully. Which means his signature shouldn't have been sufficient to authorize a withdrawal. Only your father's signature should have mattered. I leaned forward. What are you saying? I'm saying this transaction may have been processed incorrectly. The bank may have allowed your brother to effectively withdraw funds he had no legal authority to access. She looked up at me. That's bank error and potentially fraud. Fraud. If your brother presented himself as having authority he didn't actually have, and the bank failed to verify that authority properly, then yes. At minimum, it's a civil matter. At maximum, she trailed off. At maximum what? At maximum, it could be criminal. But let's not get ahead of ourselves. Victoria made more notes. There's something else here that concerns me. You said your brother hired a lawyer to explore claiming part of your inheritance. Yes, he told me he spent $3,000 of that $5,000 on a lawyer to find out if he could get access to my account. Victoria's expression darkened. That's not just unethical. That's potentially conspiracy to commit fraud. He was actively seeking legal methods to misappropriate funds that weren't his. Using money he'd already misappropriated. My head was spinning. So what can I do? Several things. First, we can demand the return of the $5,000 plus interest. Second, we can report the improper transaction to the bank and pursue damages for their failure to follow proper authorization procedures. Third, she hesitated. Third, we can pursue criminal charges against your brother for fraud and theft. The word hung in the air between us. Criminal charges. My brother. In jail. I don't want him arrested, I said quietly. I just want what's mine. I understand. But I need you to understand something, Ms. Patterson. Victoria leaned forward. Your brother admitted to you that he's been planning to access your funds. He's already taken money once. What makes you think he won't try again? Because I have sole control now. He can't touch the account. Can't he? Victoria pulled out another document. Look at this. Your brother is still listed as the beneficiary if you die. That account is worth $1.7 million. If something were to happen to you, the implication hit me like ice water. You think he'd hurt me? I think desperate people do desperate things. And your brother sounds very desperate. Victoria's voice was gentle but firm. I'm not trying to scare you. I'm trying to make sure you protect yourself, legally and otherwise. I thought about Daniel in that basement. His hollow eyes, his shaking voice when he asked me for help. Would he hurt me? 2 days ago, I would have said no. Absolutely not. He's my brother. Now I wasn't sure. There's one more thing, Victoria said. She pulled out the letter from my parents. This letter from your father. He mentions that he left your brother instructions about additional funds. Do you know what that means? No. Daniel mentioned it too. Said Dad told him there might be more money if he figured out where it was. Victoria frowned. That concerns me. It sounds like your father may have established another account or asset that we don't know about. One that might involve both you and your brother. How will we find out? We need to do a complete audit of your parents' estate. Pull every financial record, every bank statement, every document from the last 40 years. It would be expensive and time-consuming. She paused. But given the complexity of what they've already done, I think it's necessary. I closed my eyes. My parents have been dead for years, and they were still controlling my life from the grave. Still playing games. Still keeping secrets. Do it, I said. I want to know everything. All right, I'll need you to sign a retainer agreement. My rate is $300 per hour, and I estimate this will take at least 20 to 30 hours of work. Maybe more if we find additional complications. $9,000. At minimum. 3 days ago, that would have been impossible. Now is barely a dent in my account. Fine. What else do I need to do? Victoria pulled out several forms. First, we're going to file a formal complaint with the bank about the unauthorized transaction. Second, we're going to send a legal demand to your brother for the return of the funds. Third, I'm going to petition the court to freeze his ability to inherit from your account until this matter is resolved. Will that work? It should. If we can prove he's already misappropriated funds once. A judge will likely agree that he shouldn't benefit further from potential misconduct. She slid the forms across to me. Sign here, here, and here. I signed everything without reading it carefully. I trusted her. Or maybe I just didn't care anymore. I was so tired of being careful, being responsible, being the good daughter who did everything right. Where had it gotten me? 55 years old, fired from my job, almost evicted, and discovering that my entire family had been lying to me for decades. One last thing, Victoria said as I finished signing. I need to ask you something difficult. What? Your parents' deaths. Your mother in 2019, your father in 2021. Were they? She chose her words carefully. Were they investigated? Were there autopsies? My blood went cold. What are you suggesting? I'm not suggesting anything. I'm doing due diligence. Your father withdrew $5,000 from your account 2 months before he died. Your brother had a financial motive and opportunity. I need to know if anyone looked into whether your father's death was truly from natural causes. I stood up abruptly. That's insane. Daniel wouldn't. He couldn't. Ms. Patterson, please sit down. My brother is not a murderer. I'm not saying he is, Victoria said calmly. But I am saying that in cases involving significant sums of money and family disputes, we need to rule out every possibility, even the uncomfortable ones. I sat back down slowly, my legs shaking. Dad had brain cancer, I said. Stage 4. He died in hospice with me and Daniel both there. Mom had a stroke. She died in the hospital. Both deaths were expected. Both were natural. And there were no questions, no concerns from medical staff. None. Victoria Nadif. All right, then we won't pursue that line of inquiry unless something else comes up. But I needed to ask. I looked at her, this stranger who knew more about my family's secrets than I did until 3 days ago. Is this what your job is always like? I asked, assuming the worst about people. No, she said quietly. My job is protecting my clients from people who might hurt them, even if those people are family. Especially if those people are family. I left her office an hour later with a stack of documents to sign and a sick feeling in my stomach. The sun was setting. I sat in my car in the parking lot and pulled out my phone. 6 missed calls from Daniel. 3 voicemails. Probably begging me not to take legal action. Probably making more excuses. I deleted them all without listening. Then I saw the text from a number I didn't recognize. This is Sarah, Daniel's wife. Please call me. It's urgent. It's about your father's last wishes. There's something Daniel didn't tell you. My hand started shaking again. I looked at the time. 7:30. I called the number. Sarah answered on the first ring. Thank God, she breathed. Can you come over? Now? Daniel went out. He doesn't know I'm calling you. What's this about? I can't tell you over the phone. Please, just come. You need to see this. Every instinct told me this was a trap. That Sarah was working with Daniel. That this was some scheme to manipulate me. But something in her voice sounded genuine. Scared. I'll be there in 30 minutes, I said. I hung up and started driving. By the time I pulled up to Daniel's house, it was dark. Sarah was waiting on the porch. She looked older than I remembered. Thinner. Worn down by the same things that had broken Daniel. Thank you for coming, she said quietly. Come inside. Quickly. I followed her into the house and down to the basement. What's going on? I asked. Sarah went to the same box Daniel had pulled the folder from earlier. But she reached deeper, pulling out something wrapped in a plastic bag. I found this after your father's funeral, she said, hidden in a box of his things that Daniel brought home. I wasn't supposed to see it, but I did. She handed me the bag. Inside was another envelope, sealed, addressed to both Daniel and me. In my father's handwriting, dated 1 week before he died. What is this? I whispered. It's his real last words, Sarah said, not the letters he left with the bank. This is what he actually wanted you both to know. I stared at the envelope, afraid to open it. Daniel's hidden this from you for 3 years. I asked. Sarah's face was wet with tears. He was afraid of what it said. Afraid you'd hate him more than you already do. But you deserve to know the truth. Whatever it is. I sat down on the edge of the bed and carefully opened the envelope. Inside was a single page. And what I read there changed everything I thought I knew about my family, about my brother, about why my parents had done what they'd done. The truth was so much worse than I'd imagined. Gee, my dearest children, if you're reading this together, it means I'm gone. And it means you've found the accounts. Both of them. There's no easy way to say what I need to tell you, so I'll just say it. Daniel, you're not my biological son. The words blurred. I had to read them again. Then a third time. What? I whispered. Sarah sat down beside me, her hand on my shoulder. Keep reading. Your mother and I learned we couldn't have more children after your sister was born. We tried for years. Doctors, treatments, everything. Nothing worked. When your sister was 7, your mother's younger brother, your Uncle Ray, got his girlfriend pregnant. They were both 19, drug addicts, living on the streets. The baby was born premature, sick, and the mother disappeared from the hospital 3 days later. Ray followed soon after. We took that baby. We raised him as our own. We never told anyone the truth. Daniel, you were that baby. I looked up at Sarah. Her face was streaked with tears. Did he know? I asked. Did Daniel know? Not until Dad told him. 2 weeks before he died. Sarah's voice shook. That's why he took the money. That's why he hired the lawyer. He was spiraling. I looked back at the letter, my hands trembling. I know this is a terrible way to find out. I know I should have told you both years ago. But I was a coward. I was afraid Daniel would hate us. I was afraid you'd treat him differently. I was afraid everything would fall apart. So elite. For 50 years I lied. And then I got sick, and I knew I was running out of time. So I told Daniel the truth. I thought he deserved to know before I died. It destroyed him. He asked me if that's why I treated him differently. Why his account was structured to make him beg. Why I never trusted him with money the way I trusted your sister. He asked me if I loved him less because he wasn't really mine. I told him no. I told him I loved him exactly the same. I told him the account structure had nothing to do with biology and everything to do with teaching him responsibility. But I was lying again. The truth is I did treat him differently. Not because I loved him less, I didn't. But because I was always afraid. Afraid he'd turn out like Ray. Afraid the addiction, the recklessness, the self-destruction was genetic. Afraid that no matter how hard we tried, he'd end up on the streets like his biological father. So I controlled him. I gave him just enough to survive, but never enough to fail spectacularly. I thought I was protecting him. Instead, I broke him. My chest felt like it was caving in. I couldn't breathe. Daniel wasn't my brother. Not really. He was my cousin. And my parents had spent his entire life punishing him for something that wasn't his fault. Daniel, if you're reading this, I need you to know something. The account I set up for you, the one with $73,000 left, that's not all there is. I created a second account in your name, one your sister doesn't know about. It's held by a different bank, under a trust structure that activates only after my death, and only if certain conditions are met. That account is worth $800,000. I gasped. Sarah squeezed my shoulder. Keep reading, she whispered. I put the same amount aside for you that I put aside for your sister. The same monthly contributions for the same number of years. But I split yours into 2 accounts. The first account, the small one, was a test. I wanted to see if you could learn to be responsible. If you could resist temptation. If you could prove me wrong about my fears. The second account, the large one, was your real inheritance. Your actual birthright. But I made a terrible mistake. I put conditions on it. You can only access that $800,000 if your sister agrees to it. She has to sign off on the release. She has to choose to give it to you. I did this because I wanted you two to have to face each other. To talk. To be honest. I thought that forcing you to ask for her help would teach you humility. I thought that forcing her to choose whether to help you would teach her compassion. I was wrong. I was so wrong. I've spent the last 3 years watching you suffer, knowing that relief is just one signature away, knowing that I set up this cruel game and then left you both to play it out. I'm sorry, son. I'm so sorry. To both of you. I've left you each with nearly $1 million. But I've also left you with this burden, this choice. You can use this money to destroy each other, to feed resentment and anger and all the ugly things I created between you, where you can use it to save each other. The choice is yours. I hope you choose love. I hope you forgive me. I hope you forgive each other. But I'll be gone, so I'll never know. I'm sorry I couldn't be brave enough to fix this while I was alive. I love you both. Dad, I set the letter down. My whole body was numb. There's another account, I said. $800,000. Yes, Sarah said quietly. And Daniel can't touch it unless I agree. Yes. I looked at her. Why didn't he tell me? Why didn't he just show me this letter and ask? Sarah's face crumpled. Because he's ashamed. Because he thinks you'll see him as a charity case. Because he spent 3 years hating himself for not being good enough, for not being your real brother, for needing help. She wiped her eyes. And because part of him thinks he doesn't deserve it. That your father was right to treat him differently. That's insane. Is it? Sarah's voice turned sharp. You spent the last 2 days calling him a thief. Threatening him with lawyers. Treating him like he's the enemy. Can you blame him for not trusting you? The words hit like a slap. I didn't know. I said weakly. Well, now you do. Sarah stood up. That letter came with account information. The bank name, the trust number, everything you'd need to release the funds. Daniel hid all of it in his briefcase. The one he keeps locked in the closet. She walked to the closet and opened it. Inside, pushed to the back, was a battered leather briefcase. He doesn't know. I have the key, Sarah said, pulling out a small key from her pocket. He doesn't know I've read everything inside. She unlocked the briefcase and pulled out a folder. Inside were bank documents, trust agreements, a letter from a lawyer explaining the terms of the trust. Everything I need to give Daniel access to $800,000. And one more thing, a photograph. It showed a young man, maybe 19, with Daniel's eyes and Daniel's smile. He was thin, haggard, holding a baby wrapped in a hospital blanket. My Uncle Ray, the biological father Daniel had never known. He keeps that photo, Sarah said softly. He stares at it sometimes, wondering if he's destined to become that man. Wondering if addiction and failure are coded into his DNA. I couldn't look away from the photo, from those familiar eyes in an unfamiliar face. Where's Daniel now? I asked. I don't know. He left after you did. Hasn't answered my calls. I'm worried he's... She didn't finish the sentence, but I understood. I grabbed my phone and called Daniel. It went straight to voicemail. Daniel, it's me. Sarah showed me the letter. All of it. Call me back. Please. I hung up and looked at Sarah. How long has he been gone? 3 hours. Does he have his car? No. He walked. My mind raced. 3 hours. On foot. At night. Where'd he go? And then I knew. The cemetery, I said. You want to see Dad? Sarah's eyes widened. Oh God. I grabbed the folder with the trust documents and ran for the stairs. Call the police, I shouted back. Tell them to send someone to Oak Hill Cemetery. Now. I drove 15 minutes over the speed limit the whole way there. The cemetery gates were supposed to be locked after sunset, but I knew the back entrance, a gap in the fence Daniel and I had used as kids when we'd sneak in to leave flowers on our grandmother's grave. I parked on the side road and squeezed through the gap, using my phone's flashlight to navigate the dark paths. Our family plot was in a northeast corner, under a big oak tree. I'd been there 100 times. As I got closer, I saw him. Daniel was sitting on the ground between our parents' headstones, his back against the oak tree. His face was tilted up toward the sky. There was an empty pill bottle in his hand. Daniel! I screamed and ran. He turned his head slowly. His eyes were unfocused. Hey sis, he slurred. Figured you'd come. I dropped to my knees beside him and grabbed the pill bottle. Oxycodone. Prescribed to him 2 years ago after a dental surgery. The bottle had held 30 pills. It was empty. How many did you take? I grabbed his face, forcing him to look at me. Daniel, how many? All of them. He smiled weakly. Seemed like the right number. When? What did you take them? I don't know. Hour ago. Maybe more. Time's all weird now. An hour. Maybe more. Depending on how much he'd eaten, how fast they were absorbing. I dialed 911 with shaking hands. I need an ambulance at Oak Hill Cemetery. My brother overdosed on oxycodone. He took 30 pills at least an hour ago. The dispatcher started asking questions. I answered them mechanically while holding Daniel's wrist, checking his pulse. It was there, but weak. Too weak. Daniel, stay awake. Look at me. Stay awake. Tired, he mumbled. So tired. Tired of failing. Tired of being broken. Tired of being the wrong son. You're not the wrong son, I said, tears streaming down my face. You're my brother. You hear me? You're my brother. Am not, though. Dad's letter said. I don't care what Dad's letter said. I shook him. You're my brother. You've always been my brother. Biology doesn't change that. You hate me, he whispered. I stole from you. Elite. I'm everything he was afraid I'd be. I don't hate you. I was angry, but I don't hate you. I pressed the folder into his hands. Look at this. It's the trust documents. For your account. $800,000. I'm going to sign it. Tomorrow. I'm going to give you everything. Daniel's eyes struggled to focus on the papers. Why? Because you're my brother. Because Dad was wrong. Because you deserve it. What if I waste it? What if I'm just like Ray? Then you waste it. I don't care. I cupped his face in my hands. I just need you to live. Please, Daniel. Please don't leave me alone. His eyes were closing. Daniel. No, stay awake. In the distance, I heard sirens. They're coming, I said. Just hold on. Please hold on. But his head had dropped to his chest. His body had gone limp. Daniel. I laid him flat on the ground and started CPR like I'd learned in a training course years ago. Chest compressions. Counting. Breathing into his mouth. Come on, come on, come on. The paramedics burst through the trees with a stretcher and equipment. They pushed me aside gently and took over. I watched them work, standing there with dirt on my knees and Daniel's blood. No, my cousin's blood on my hands. One of the paramedics pulled out a syringe. Narcan. They injected it directly into Daniel's arm. Time stopped, and then Daniel gasped. His body convulsed. His eyes flew open. We've got him, the paramedics said. Let's move. They lifted him onto the stretcher and started running back toward the ambulance. I followed, clutching the folder with the trust documents. The folder that held my brother's future, if he lived long enough to have one. Gee, the hospital waiting room smelled like disinfectant and burnt coffee. I've been sitting in the same plastic chair for 4 hours. Sarah had arrived an hour ago, her face pale and exhausted. We hadn't spoken much, just sat side by side waiting. The doctor finally came out at 2 in the morning. Family of Daniel Patterson? We both stood. The doctor was young, maybe early 30s, with tired eyes behind wire-rimmed glasses. He's stable. We pumped his stomach and administered additional Narcan. His vitals are improving, but we're keeping him for psychiatric evaluation. Standard protocol for overdose cases. Can we see him? Sarah asked. He's sleeping now, but you can sit with him if you'd like. Room 412. We followed her down the hallway. The fluorescent lights made everything look washed out and surreal. Daniel was in a bed by the window, hooked up to an 4 and a heart monitor. His face was pale against the white pillow. He looked smaller somehow, younger, like the little brother I remembered from childhood. Sarah went to his side immediately, taking his hand. I stood at the foot of the bed, still holding that folder. I'm sorry, Sarah said quietly, not looking at me. I should have told you sooner. About the letter. About everything. I didn't know how. Why did you tell me tonight? She finally looked up. Her eyes were red and swollen. Because this afternoon, I found something else. In his phone, he'd been researching overdose methods, looking up how many pills it would take. I knew he was planning this. My stomach turned. He was planning to kill himself. I think he's been planning it for months. Maybe since your dad died. Maybe longer. She stroked Daniel's hand gently. He keeps saying he's a burden, that we'd be better off without him, that the life insurance would at least give us something. Life insurance? We have a small policy. $25,000. Enough to get us out of this basement. Enough to give the kids a better life. Sarah's voice cracked. He thinks his death is worth more than his life. I sat down heavily in the chair beside the bed. Dad did this to him, I said. All those years of conditional love. All those tests and restrictions and judgments. He broke Daniel piece by piece. Your dad was terrified, Sarah said, of what Daniel might become. But that fear turned into a self-fulfilling prophecy. He treated Daniel like he was damaged goods, so Daniel started believing he was. I looked at my brother's sleeping face, tried to see the cousin I'd never known he was, tried to reconcile 45 years of memories with this new truth. But he just looked like Daniel, my brother, the kid who'd shared a bunk bed with me on family vacations, the teenager who'd taught me how to drive, the man who'd walk me down the aisle at my wedding after Dad had a heart scare the week before. Biology didn't matter. It never had. I'm signing those papers tomorrow, I said. The trust. All of it. He's getting that money. Sarah looked at me with something like hope. You mean it? Yes. And I'm giving him more. Another $100,000 from my account. He's going to have $1 million. Enough to start over. Enough to get help. Enough to prove Dad wrong about everything. He'll waste it, Sarah said quietly. You know he will. Not all of it, maybe, but some. He's not good with money. He's never been good with money. I know. So why give it to him? I thought about my parents. About the letter they'd left. About the cruel game they designed. Because Dad wanted me to choose, I said, whether to save Daniel or condemn him, whether to show compassion or judgment. And I'm choosing to save him. Even if he fails. I looked at Sarah, but he's not going to fail. Not this time. Because this time, he's going to get real help. Therapy, financial counseling, whatever he needs. And I'm going to make sure he gets it. Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. Why are you doing this? After everything he did to you, because he's my brother, I said simply, and because I understand what it's like to spend your whole life trying to prove you're good enough, trying to meet impossible standards, trying to be the person someone else needs you to be. I thought about my own life. 55 years of playing it safe, of being responsible, of never taking risks because I was terrified of failing. My parents had controlled me just as much as they controlled Daniel, just in different ways. What are you going to do with your money? Sarah asked. Your $1 million? I thought about my eviction notice, my lost job, the life I've been living that felt so small and careful and afraid. I don't know yet, I admitted, but I know I'm not going to let fear decide anymore. I'm not going to let their voices in my head tell me what I'm allowed to do or be or want. Daniel stirred slightly in the bed. His eyes fluttered open. Hey, he croaked. His voice was rough from the intubation. Hey yourself, I said. He looked around the room, taking in the hospital equipment, the 4 in his arm, Sarah, and me sitting beside him. I'm alive, he said. It wasn't a question, more like a realization. You're alive? I confirmed. I'm sorry, he whispered. Tears started running down his face. I'm so sorry. I couldn't see any other way out. I moved to the side of the bed and took his other hand. I know about the letter, I said. The real one. I know about Uncle Ray. I know about the second account. I know everything. Daniel's face crumpled. Then you know I'm not really your brother. You're my brother, I said firmly. You've always been my brother. Nothing changes that. But Dad was wrong. About so many things. About you. About me. About how to love people. I squeeze his hand. But he's gone now. And we get to decide who we are to each other. I don't deserve your forgiveness, Daniel said. I stole from you. I lied to you. I tried to take even more. I know. And I'm still going to give you the $800,000. Daniel's eyes went wide. What? I'm signing the trust papers tomorrow. And I'm adding another $100,000 from my account. You're getting $1 million, Daniel. Clean slate. I'll waste it, he said immediately. You know I will. Dad knew I would. That's why he set it up this way. Maybe you will, I said. Or maybe you won't. But either way, it's your choice. Your life. Your money. Why would you do this? After everything, I thought about how to answer. About all the complex reasons and emotions tangled up inside me. But in the end, it came down to something simple. Because I love you, I said. And because I choose to believe in you. Even if you don't believe in yourself yet. Daniel started sobbing. Sarah wrapped her arms around him from one side while I held his hand from the other. We stayed like that for a long time. Eventually, Daniel fell back asleep. The nurse came in to check his vitals and told us we should go home, get some rest. He'd be in psychiatric care for at least 72 hours. Sarah and I walked out to the parking lot together as the sun was starting to rise. "Thank you," she said at her car, "for saving him, for giving him another chance. Thank you for calling me, for showing me the letter, for trusting me with the truth." Sarah nodded, then hesitated. "There's one more thing I need to tell you." My stomach dropped. Of course there was more. "What?" "Your father's letter, the one Daniel hid. That wasn't the only thing in his briefcase." "What else was there?" Sarah pulled out her phone and showed me a photo. It was another document, an email printed out, from my mother, sent 3 days before she died. "Your mom wrote this to Daniel," Sarah said. "I don't think she ever meant for you to see it, but I think you should know." I looked at the email on her phone screen. "Daniel, your father doesn't know I'm writing this. He wouldn't approve. He thinks I'm being too soft on you again. But I need you to know something before I die. I want to tell your sister the truth about you years ago. Not because I thought it mattered, you're my son, biology or not, but because I thought it would help her understand. Understand why your father treats you differently. Why the accounts are structured the way they are. Your father said no. He said it would destroy the family. That you'd both see yourselves differently. That we'd lose everything we'd built. I went along with it because I loved him. Because I trusted him. Because I thought he knew best. But I was wrong. And he was wrong. The truth is eating you alive, Daniel. I can see it. You think there's something wrong with you. You think you're broken. You think every failure proves your father's fears right. But you're not broken. You're human. You've made mistakes because everyone makes mistakes. Your father made mistakes. I made mistakes. Your sister has made mistakes. The difference is that we've never had to prove we deserve to exist. But you've spent your whole life trying to prove it. And I let that happen. I stayed silent when I should have spoken up. I stood by while your father's fear destroyed your self-worth. I'm sorry, Daniel. I'm so sorry. I can't fix it now. I am dying. The stroke has taken too much. But I need you to know that you're loved. You are worthy. You are enough. And when I'm gone, I need you to tell your sister everything. Show her the letters. Show her the accounts. Let her make her own choice about what kind of relationship you'll have going forward. She'll surprise you. She's stronger and kinder than anyone gives her credit for. Trust her. I love you, my boy. Always have. Always will. Mom. I stared at the phone screen until the words blurred. My mother had known. She'd known Dad was wrong. She wanted to tell me. She tried to fix it, but she'd run out of time. She sent this 3 days before the stroke, Sarah said softly. Daniel got it on his phone while we were at the hospital with her. He read it sitting in the waiting room while the doctors told your dad there was no hope. Did he ever respond? No. She died before he could. Sarah put her phone away. But he's kept that email like a lifeline. Read it over and over. It's the only thing that's kept him going sometimes. I thought about my mother in those final days. Barely able to speak. Unable to tell me the truth herself. Had she been trying? In those last moments, had she been trying to say something I couldn't understand? Go home, Sarah said gently. Get some sleep. We'll figure out the rest tomorrow. I nodded and got in my car. But I didn't go home. I drove to Victoria Chen's office. At 6 in the morning, the building was locked, but I sat in the parking lot and called her cell phone. The number she'd given me for emergencies. She answered on the third ring, voice thick with sleep. Ms. Patterson? What's wrong? I need you to draw up papers, I said. Transfer documents for the trust. And an additional gift from my account to my brother. I want it done today. Today? That's very fast. Today, I repeated. My brother tried to kill himself last night. He's in the hospital. And when he wakes up, I want him to know that his future is secure. That he doesn't have to be afraid anymore. There was a pause. All right, Victoria said. Give me 2 hours. I'll have everything ready. Thank you. I hung up and sat there in the parking lot, watching the sun rise over the city. My parents were gone. Their games were over. Their fears and judgments and conditions were finished. Now it was just Daniel and me. 2 people trying to build something real out of the broken pieces we'd been given. And for the first time in my life, I felt something unfamiliar. Hope. Gee, Victoria had the papers ready by noon. I signed everything in her office, the trust release, the additional gift transfer, all of it. My hand cramped by the time I finished, but I didn't care. This is incredibly generous, Victoria said as she notarized the final document. Are you certain about this? Once these are filed, there's no going back. I'm certain. She slid the papers into a folder and handed it to me. The transfers will take 3 to 5 business days to complete. Your brother will have access to just over $900,000 by the end of next week. $900,000. I'd kept $800,000 for myself after the additional gift. Still more money than I'd ever dreamed of having. There's something else, Victoria said, her expression shifting. While you were dealing with your brother's emergency last night, I continued investigating your parents' estate. I found something. My stomach tightened. What? She pulled out another folder. Your parents had a safe deposit box. It was listed in their estate documents, but marked as contents distributed to heirs. I assumed that meant it had been emptied and closed. It wasn't. No, it's still active. Still being paid for by an automatic withdrawal from an account in your father's name. She slid a paper across to me. The box was opened exactly once after your father's death. 2 weeks after the funeral. By someone with authorized access. Daniel, I said. That's what I thought too. But look at the signature log. She showed me a photocopy. The signature wasn't Daniel's. It was mine. That's not my signature, I said immediately. I never went to that bank. I never opened any safe deposit box. Victoria's face was grim. That's what concerned me. So I pulled the security footage from the bank. She opened her laptop and turned it toward me. A grainy video showed a woman approaching a bank employee. Average height, brown hair, sunglasses. She signed something, then followed the employee into the vault area. The woman looked like me. Similar build, similar hair. But it wasn't me. Who is that? I whispered. I don't know. But whoever she is, she forged your signature and accessed your parents' safe deposit box 2 weeks after your father died. Victoria Post. And I think your brother knows who she is. Why would you think that? Because I checked his phone records, the ones his wife gave me permission to access. The morning this woman accessed the safe deposit box, Daniel received 3 calls from a number registered to a private investigator named Marcus Chun. My blood went cold. Marcus. You know him. Marcus was my boyfriend when I was 15. The one my parents wrote about in their letter. The one they wouldn't let me give money to. My mind was racing. But his last name was Reynolds, not Chun. Victoria typed something into her computer. People change their names, especially if they have criminal records. She turned the laptop back to me. A mugshot filled the screen. Marcus. Older, harder, but unmistakably him. The boy I'd loved at 15 was now a man with a record for fraud, identity theft, and extortion. He served 8 years in prison, Victoria said. Got out in 2016. Changed his name. Got licensed as a private investigator. He's been working in the area for the past 6 years. Why would Daniel be talking to him? That's what we need to find out. Victoria closed the laptop. I've already contacted the police. They're sending a detective to the hospital this afternoon to interview your brother. Daniel's in psychiatric care. They won't let. They'll make an exception for a criminal investigation. Forgery, fraud, and theft from a safe deposit box are serious crimes. She looked at me carefully. Ms. Patterson, whatever was in that box, someone wanted it badly enough to commit multiple felonies. And your brother either helped them or knows who did. I stood up, grabbing my bag. I need to talk to Daniel first. The detective specifically asked you not to. I don't care what the detective wants. That's my brother. I need to hear this from him. I left before Victoria could argue further. The drive to the hospital took 15 minutes. I badged in as immediate family and took the elevator to the psychiatric ward on the 4th floor. Daniel was awake, sitting up in bed, picking at a tray of hospital food. He looked better than he had last night. Color in his face, clarity in his eyes. He looked up when I walked in, and something like guilt flashed across his face. You know, I said, closing the door behind me. About the safe deposit box. Daniel set down his fork. How did you? My lawyer found records. Someone forged my signature and accessed Mom and Dad's safe deposit box 2 weeks after the funeral. And you got multiple calls from Marcus Reynolds, or Marcus Sean, as he's calling himself now, the same day it happened. Daniel closed his eyes. It's not what you think. Then tell me what it is. Because the police are coming here this afternoon to ask you about it, and I'd really like to hear your version first. He was quiet for a long moment. Then he opened his eyes and looked at me. After Dad died, I was going through his papers, looking for the account information, the letters, everything. I found a key taped to the bottom of a drawer in his desk. Just a small key with a number on it. I didn't know what it was for. A safe deposit box key. Yeah, but I couldn't access it. The box was in both your and Dad's names. I wasn't authorized. Daniel shifted in the bed. I was desperate to know what was in there. Desperate to find out if there were more secrets, more money, more explanations. So you hired Marcus to forge my signature? No. Daniel looked horrified. No, I didn't hire him to do anything. I wanted to find him, to ask him questions. What kind of questions? Daniel's face twisted with something painful. About Uncle Ray. Marcus grew up in the same neighborhood, same circle. I thought maybe he'd known him, known what happened to him, if he was still alive, where he might be. I sat down slowly. You were looking for your biological father. Dad's letter said Ray disappeared after I was born. Just vanished. No one knew where he went. If he was dead or alive, or... Daniel's voice cracked. I just wanted to know, to understand where I came from, to see if there was anything of him in me besides the addiction and the failure. So you contacted Marcus. I found out he was a PI. I thought he could help me search. I called him, told him what I was looking for. Daniel swallowed hard. But when I mentioned Mom and Dad's names, he got really interested. Started asking questions about the estate, about assets, about safe deposit boxes. And you told him about the key. I was stupid. I was grieving and desperate, and I wasn't thinking straight. I told him everything. The key, the box number, the bank. I even showed him a picture of you, so he'd know what you looked like. My stomach turned. Daniel, what was in that box? I don't know, he said miserably. Marcus said he'd help me access it. Said he knew someone who could pose as you, forge the signature, get in and out quickly. He said we'd split whatever was inside 50-50. I thought it was just going to be more documents, more letters, maybe information about Ray. But it wasn't. I don't know what it was. The woman went in, came out 10 minutes later with a small bag. Marcus called me and said the contents were disappointing. Just some old papers and a watch. Nothing valuable. He said he'd send me copies of the papers, and that was it. Did he send you the copies? Daniel shook his head. He said he would, but he never did. And when I called to follow up, his number was disconnected. I tried to find him, went to the address he'd given me, but it was fake. He just vanished, taking whatever was in the box with him. Yeah, Daniel looked at me with red-rimmed eyes. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I was trying to find answers, and I just made everything worse. I always make everything worse. I thought about what Victoria had said, about Marcus's criminal record, about fraud and extortion. Marcus knew Mom and Dad. I said slowly. He knew them when we were teenagers. He knew they had money because he tried to get it through me. So what if he's known about these accounts for years? What if he's been waiting for them to die so he could access whatever they left behind? I pulled out my phone and called Victoria. She answered immediately. Ms. Patterson, the safe deposit box. Can you find out what was originally in it? There has to be a record, an inventory list, or something. I can try, but that information is usually confidential unless. Tell them it's part of a criminal investigation. Tell them whatever you need to tell them. But I need to know what was stolen. I'll call you back. I hung up and looked at Daniel. A detective is coming here today. You need to tell him everything you just told me. About Marcus, about the key, about the woman who posed as me. I'll go to jail. Maybe. Or maybe you'll be considered a victim of fraud too. Either way, you have to tell the truth. Why are you helping me? I keep screwing up. I keep making things worse for you. Because you're my brother, I said simply. And because I think there's more to this story than we know. More than dad's letters and mom's emails. Something they were protecting or hiding or afraid of. My phone rang. Victoria. I got the inventory list, she said without preamble. The safe deposit box contained 3 items. A manila envelope with documents inside, an antique gold watch, and a jewelry box. What kind of documents? The inventory doesn't specify. Just says personal papers. But there's a note in the file, added by her father 6 months before he died. It says contents to be destroyed unopened in event of suspicious circumstances. Destroyed unopened? Yes. Your father was very specific. If anyone other than you or him accessed the box, or if there were any indication of coercion or fraud, the contents were to be destroyed without examination. I looked at Daniel, at his confused, frightened face. What were they hiding? I whispered. I don't know. But whatever it was, Marcus Chun has it now. Victoria Post. And I think he's going to come after you next. Why me? Because you're the one with access to the money. And because whatever those documents say, they're leverage. Against you, against your brother, or against someone else entirely. I heard voices in the hallway. Official voices. The detective was here. I have to go, I told Victoria. But keep digging. Find out everything you can about Marcus Chun and about Uncle Ray. There's a connection we're missing. Already on it. I hung up just as 2 people entered the room. A man and a woman, both in plain clothes. Detectives. The man stepped forward. Middle-aged, receding hairline, tired eyes. Ms. Patterson? I'm Detective Morales. This is Detective Kim. We need to ask you and your brother some questions about a theft that occurred 3 years ago. I stood up. My brother will cooperate fully. But I need you to understand, he's a victim here too. He was manipulated by someone with a criminal history. We'll determine that through our investigation, Detective Morales said. For now, we need to speak with Mr. Patterson alone. I'm not leaving. Detective Kim spoke for the first time, her voice gentler. Ms. Patterson, we understand this is difficult, but we need to conduct this interview properly. You can wait outside. It won't take long. I looked at Daniel. He nodded slightly. Tell them everything, I said. The truth. All of it. I walked out into the hallway and sank into a chair by the nurse's station. 20 minutes later, the detectives emerged. Detective Morales came over to me. Your brother's story matches what we already know, he said. Marcus Chun is a known con artist. We've been looking for him for 2 years on multiple fraud charges. But he's good at disappearing. What was in the safe deposit box? I asked. What did he steal? We don't know yet. Your brother never saw the contents. But we believe Chun is using whatever information he obtained to target other victims. Other victims? Detective Kim pulled out a photo. An older woman, maybe 70, with kind eyes. This is Eleanor Chun, Marcus's mother. She died 3 months ago. I don't understand. What does she have to do with this? The detectives exchanged a look. Eleanor Chun, Detective Morales said carefully, was your Uncle Ray's wife. She had a son from that marriage before Ray disappeared. The hallway tilted. Marcus is Ray's stepson. I whispered, yes. And according to what we've uncovered, he's been searching for Ray for over 30 years. He thinks your parents knew where Ray went, or what happened to him. And now he thinks whatever was in that safe deposit box will tell him. Yes, Detective Kim said, and we think he's going to contact you. Soon. Because if those documents do contain information about Ray, you're the only one left who might be able to verify it. I thought about the boy I'd loved at 15. How devastated I'd been when he'd left me. He'd been using me even then, getting close to my family, searching for answers about his stepfather. And now, 30 years later, he was still searching. What do you need me to do? I asked. Detective Morales pulled out a card. If he contacts you, by phone, email, in person, anything, you call me immediately. Don't engage. Don't try to handle it yourself. He's dangerous, Ms. Patterson. More dangerous than you realize. I took the card, and that's when my phone buzzed. An email from an address I didn't recognize. The subject line made my blood run cold. We need to talk about your Uncle Ray and about what really happened to your parents. I show the detectives. Detective Morales swore under his breath. Looks like he's making contact sooner than we thought, he said. Don't open it yet. Let's get this phone to our tech team, see if we can trace. My phone buzzed again. A text this time, from the same number. Just 3 words. I know everything. The detectives took my phone to trace the messages. I sat in that hospital hallway for 2 hours while they worked. When they finally returned, Detective Morales looked grim. The messages were sent through encrypted servers. Untraceable, but we accessed the email content. He showed me his tablet. The email read, "Your parents didn't die from natural causes. Ray didn't disappear, and the money they left you, it was never theirs to give. Meet me tomorrow at Oak Hill Cemetery, 3 p.m., alone, or I send proof to the police and the press." My hand shook. This is blackmail. Yes, and it's probably a lie designed to manipulate you. But we need to treat it as credible. Detective Kim leaned forward. We want to set up a sting operation. You go to the meeting wearing a wire. We'll have officers positioned throughout the cemetery. I thought about my parents, about their careful planning, their secrets, their fears. What if he's telling the truth? I whispered. Then we'll find out together, Detective Morales said. The next day, I stood by my parents' graves at exactly 3 p.m. Marcus appeared from behind the oak tree. Older, harder, but still recognizable. "Hello, sweetheart," he said. "Been a long time. What do you want?" He pulled out a folder. "The truth about Ray. About your parents. About everything. I'm listening. Ray didn't disappear. Your parents paid him to leave. $50,000 to abandon his son and never come back." Marcus's voice shook. "They bought my stepfather. Made him choose money over me. That's not murder. There's more." He opened the folder. "Ray came back in 2019. Asked for more money. And your father made sure he couldn't ask again." He showed me a photograph. My father, with someone who looked like an older version of Daniel. Uncle Ray, dated 3 weeks before my mother's stroke. "Your dad killed him," Marcus said. "And I can prove it. Unless you pay me what Ray should have gotten. $2 million. Behind him, I saw the signal. Officers moving in. "You know what, Marcus?" I said. "I don't believe you." His face twisted with rage. "You'll regret." The officers swarmed. Marcus fought, but they had him down in seconds. Detective Morales approached me. "You did great. Was any of it true?" I asked. "We'll find out." It took 18 months to unravel everything. Marcus had fabricated most of his story. Ray had died in 2003 from an overdose. Alone, unmurdered, far from our family. The photograph had been doctored. The evidence was fantasy built from resentment and decades of conspiracy theories. My parents had paid Ray to leave. That part was true, but it was Ray's choice. He'd taken the money and disappeared into his addiction. Marcus went to prison for extortion and fraud. Daniel went to therapy. Real therapy. He used his money to buy a house, start a small business, and rebuild his life slowly. He still struggles, but he's trying. And me? I quit playing it safe. I traveled, started a nonprofit, fell in love with someone who didn't know about the money, built a life that felt mine. 3 years after that night in the cemetery, I was in a coffee shop when I saw her. The woman from the bank security footage. The one who'd posed as me. Our eyes met across the room. She looked terrified, started to run. I followed her outside. "Wait," I called. "I'm not going to hurt you." She stopped, breathing hard. Marcus said it was just a job. I didn't know what I was taking. I swear. What was in the box? She pulled out an envelope from her bag. War increased. I kept one thing. The watch. I sold it. But these letters, I couldn't get rid of them. She handed me the envelope. Inside were letters. From my mother to Ray, begging him to get clean, offering help, offering love, and one letter from Ray to Daniel. Written the day he took the money and left. "I'm not strong enough to be your father, but I hope someday you'll be strong enough to forgive me." I looked at the woman. "What's your name?" "Melissa." "Keep the money from the watch, Melissa. You need it more than I do." I walked away with the letters. That night, I gave him to Daniel. He cried, reading his biological father's words. Cried for the man Ray could have been. for the life Daniel never got to have with him. But then he looked up at me and smiled. "I'm okay," he said. "Really, I'm okay." And I believed him. Some doors, once you close them, change you forever. Some inheritances have nothing to do with money. And some families are built not from blood or obligation, but from the choice to keep showing up. We chose each other, and that was worth more than any account my parents could have left behind. The past doesn't own us anymore. We're finally free.